Hello, and welcome to the Culture Cave. I'm Anthony, and that's Konrad.
Hello, we're here again.
Now, this is technically episode 8 of our 1899 breakdown. What you will know if you read our post, what you won't know if you didn't, is that this is actually the second time recording this episode, Konrad.
The lost episode. That's what we've created a lost, treasured piece of internet content. I say we created it. You've just deleted the corrupted file, and I've deleted my side of it today because I was like, "There's no point in me keeping this."
One-sided conversation with just Konrad.
Yeah, it would have just been me talking to myself, which I do from time to time, but no one needs to see.
Okay. So just to tech heads out there, there was no chance of saving it. I did a lot of investigation. Basically, what happened was my disk ran out of space to write it, but I was recording in an MP4, so therefore it couldn't write it until technically the recording had stopped. The recording didn't stop because it crashed, and now it's all corrupted, so we couldn't get it. Anyway, so last week's, I think Konrad's in agreement with me though. That's that episode we recorded. That was probably the best episode of the whole season.
It was a banger. It was an absolute banger, and I think we needed to take a week to get the energy back, and also to forget the hilarious jokes that we made.
Just hopefully we come up with them again spontaneously.
I've got absolute faith that we will return to those jokes and it will feel organic because I can't remember what we said the last time we recorded this now.
Yeah, I can't remember, and I'm going to be completely honest with you. Jeez, it was good stuff. And I'm going to apologise now. If you think that somehow what we do in this episode is somewhat anticlimactic, just always know there was a perfect podcast out there, and
add 30% of performance to anything you get in this episode. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
and if we're on 100%, well, we hit 130%.
Yeah. So essentially, what Konrad and I did: imagine taking one of your best friends, sitting down for 2 hours, and then just talking the whole time as if you're recording a podcast. That's what we did, and you know what? I think we're better friends for it, Konrad. Now.
Yeah, we've been through the crucible of technical problems on podcasts together now, and have forged anew. Yeah, like the One Ring is what we've become now.
Yeah, every time we just hang out, that's how we talk to each other now. But anyway, so there we go, guys. That's how. Just as a little proviso there, we've had these conversations.
And apologies
before.
for the delay, I guess.
Yes, massive delay. I'm going to be honest with you. Also, there is the element as well. We had character from the Mighty Ducks. We G'd ourselves up.
Guy de Gisborne, the character from Robin Hood.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of G's out there, but anyway, we G'd ourselves up to do the last episode, knowing that it was cancelled, knowing that our theories wouldn't go anywhere. And then just to have it all taken away by a corrupted file, we needed to collect ourselves. So we'll try and do our best. Anyway, we're going to get into...
It was like John Netflix turned up in our podcast and kicked us both square in the balls and said, no more 1899 for you, and no more podcasting for you either.
John Netflix. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, John Netflix.
Actually, that reminds me, just before we get in, a little anecdote for the guys here. That reminds me, the other day, you know how Mr. Beast is always trending because he's a massive, massive YouTuber. He's just crazy, the guy. But he was trending because of a whole lot of stuff. And then my mom actually got wind of who this guy. It's like, who's this Mr. Beast? And I was like, oh, it's just a guy who makes videos giving stuff away, and he seems to be a nice enough fella, but whatever. Mr. Beast. And she goes, all right. And I said, well, his name's not really Mr. Beast. His name's Jimmy. And she goes, all right, Jimmy Beast.
Yeah, that's his surname. That's his Christian name.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, anyway, there we go, guys. Into Konrad's pre-thoughts.
Hello. It's the end. We've made it here. At long last, my voice is a bit croaky. It's Sunday morning and I've just woken up, so that's my excuse for that. No dressing gown today though, although it is still fucking cold. But I thought, why not make myself presentable and dress up a little for the end of the show? So we made it to the end of the season, and indeed, what looks like the end of the series, unless a minor miracle happens. And that makes it odd, kind of going into the final episode, because I have loads of theories kind of percolating away, and I know that most of them are probably not going to have any kind of concrete resolution. I also know that there was probably a bunch of stuff that they were planning to show us in the future seasons that we just won't ever see now. So ideas that will probably completely blow my mind. But I know it's called, this final episode of 1899, episode 8, is called The Key, which probably relates to both Mora's literal key and the figurative key that Henry is after to, I think, help his sick wife, though we may or may not see whether that's correct in this one. But yeah, it's still, you know, the end of a leg of a journey, if not the full journey itself, and I'm thoroughly looking forward to it. I hope there's not that many characters left alive really at this point, so I was gonna speculate on who I'd like to see some inter-character drama between, but to be honest, it's probably just going to be all of them because there's only like 5 people left alive. But yeah, something to look forward to, and yeah, I will catch up with you in the main body of the episode, and then after I finish watching it.
Hey you. Yeah. You. Do you like 1899? Well, as well as these breakdown videos, we also do theories, unanswered questions, and plenty more. Subscribe so you don't miss it. The episode opens with Mora's memory. They're on the plane, which I thought was in Scotland. Someone said it was in Iceland. I don't think it was in Iceland. I think I was right. But anyway, I'm happy to be wrong, even though I'm right. Anyway, so they're in this memory. Elliot finds a little bug, calls it Alfred. I believe in the Lost episode, I referred to it as Batman's butler. I don't know.
Yes, there was an entire bit about that.
Yeah, but we'll skip past that.
I can't figure out how we made that funny, to be honest, and maybe we didn't. So I think it's best that we move on from it. Yeah, they're together in this rugged. It's not really a tundra. We've discussed the landscape on length. At this point, I can't remember what we settled on as like a noun for this kind of landscape, but wherever it is, I don't know. Yeah, it's a bit mountainous. Sure, it's certainly rugged, but yeah, he's named his bug Alfred. He doesn't want him to be trapped inside, Mora explains to Elliot that Alfred himself doesn't want to be trapped inside a prison.
Yep.
And then we get into what I think is a slightly presumptuous assertion from Mora, that when you love something, you have to set it free. Which I've not seen any point in this scene where Elliot has asserted that he loves his beetle. He simply wants to put it in a box, and frankly, that seems like she's overstepped as a parent there.
Yeah. She's really went too far there.
What are you talking about, Mum? I didn't say I loved it. Like,
it's a beetle. Like, yes, of course, I've given it a name. Yes, of course, I've given it a name. Doesn't mean I love it. I mean, what do you give a name to that you don't love? Actually, that's a good question. Is the naming of this little mini beast the implication of love? That's what I want to know.
It's certainly giving it an id, which is, you know, like that's really raising those kind of existential questions of identity that this entire show is focused on, to be honest. You know, has the naming of Alfred made it a sentient being worthy of respect in that regard? But yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of something funny that I've named that I hate to disprove the idea that if you name something you love it, but I actually can't think of anything anymore. Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of things with names that I do hate, but I didn't give the name to it. So
yeah, that's true actually. And maybe when those things were named, it was by someone who loved them, and then
someone loved them,
slowly grew to not love them. But anyway, so yeah, I think it was funny there because a lot of the listeners were probably assuming you were going to start talking about Mora's very clear sort of internal monologue about, like, you know, you should let things go, which is really what, you know, she doesn't actually do that. So it's a really good analogy to that what we find out later in the idea that she's like torturing Elliot over and over again or whatever she's doing. Yeah,
there's definitely a metaphor at work here. I think we can all agree on that. I'll also point out here that I'm fairly sure this isn't an accurate memory based on what we see here. There's no reason for, like, it's another example, I think, of a memory where, like, the sort of composite parts are accurate, but where they're happening, and maybe even the way they're happening, is not right. So I don't see why they would be having this conversation on this, like, windswept mountain top or wherever the hell.
Where else are you going to buy a beetle? But as if he bought this beetle.
Go to your beetle shop. Yeah,
a little beetle shop on this tundra. No. Where else are you going to find this little multicolored oil covered beetle that we'll call it? I don't know.
It's certainly got an oily appearance.
Yeah. Anyway, so he's got the beetle. Very clear metaphor here. You saying that you don't think it's accurate? Actually, it's quite. I think I agree with you, because the thing is, whenever he wakes up from the memory, he's still within a memory. He's still dreaming, right? So he's like, he's now like hold in front of like the pyramid or whatever, holding his mum's hospital gown, and then after that, and then Henry says they came to forget who they are. Now that means this is when he wakes up for real. He's in Henry's office. They come first to forget who they are. That's looking at the monitors of the people on the boat. Your mother fooled all of us. She's the only person who can get us out of here. Now, this is a big point of confusion for me. Well, I don't know if confusion is the right word, but anyway, a point I want to discuss. Both Henry and Maura seem to want the same thing. So the whole way through this episode, Henry keeps talking about how Maura is the only one who can get them out. At the same time, Daniel's trying to help Maura get out. So why is Henry not trying to help that as well? Or is it that he just thinks that he needs the key from her? Like, what does he mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that like I definitely return to throughout this episode, is this idea that like their goals seem to align. So it doesn't really make sense why they seem to be in this like high stakes race to see who can get out. Because surely if someone gets out, then everything's fine. Which, this is one of those things that I don't think we're ever going to get an answer to, but it's one of the things that sows a seed of doubt about the legitimacy of where this episode ends up. Because if it was just like, you wake up on a spaceship and then you need to get everyone else out of the simulation, it surely doesn't matter. And it does lean a bit into my theory that Henry Singleton is like he is a manifestation of Maura's own traumatic relationship with her dad, like, and that he will always act in opposition to her because he's like only characterized as an opposing force to her rather than like a real person whose motivations make sense, which I think is definitely true here. But yeah, we get in this scene, there's some great writing in this scene, to be honest. So him telling Elliot they came on the ship because they made the decision to forget their past is another instance of like the dialogue working wonderfully, both with the themes of the show and also the literal events that are going on in 1899, because you've got, these people have literally come onto the ship in 1899 because they've murdered priests down wells or whatever the hell it is they've done. And they're getting on the ship to go to America to start a new life, but these characters also exist in a wider context, or seemingly exist in a wider context by the end of the episode, that really works thematically with. And also, yes, she's the only person who can get us out of here. The beginnings of the confirmation of like the Henry Singleton theory that had me very excited throughout this episode.
Yeah, like you predicted she's the creator and stuff. Like it all sort of fits together. Also, just wanted to mention as well, I think some people would probably say, look, how could he be the figment of her like imagination, or how could he be a manifestation of her thoughts? Because he's trying to get out, and Daniel thinks that he's trapped in there. We have to always remember, like, everything in the simulation, we don't know what's real and what's not. So I think you're onto something there, and I think that makes sense to me. I think I would actually, to the point where I would actually be surprised if, when the show was to continue, if it was ever to be finished, I'd actually be surprised if Anton Lesser was actually on that spaceship plugged in. I don't think, and I know you don't think that's the case, but I think a lot of people think that's probably the case. I think that maybe it's just he's the antagonist programmed into this thing, through her brain or whatever. She's like, her brain ran away with itself.
He just seems too, like, he's too much of a like, he stands so completely in opposition to her that it doesn't really make sense to me that he would be an actual human acting in this way. Yeah, and you could even say, like, maybe he's like the part of her, because obviously she's the creator, so some part of her is still in control, or thinks they're in control. So like he's might be the part of her that's like viewing everything. Also, there is a little thing to notice that Maura did look at the camera whenever they were all. They were all, Elliot and Henry were looking at the things, and I don't know why that just reminded me of like the TV show like Big Brother. Like, can you imagine like that? Like they're all on this boat instead of like in the Big Brother house, like, and then like Maura goes Maura goes to the diary room and starts ranting. Instead of Maura saying "wake up," it's a Geordie presenter. Wake up and come to the diary room.
Mora wakes up. Yeah, I can't really do it. But
I can't either.
Yeah.
I apologise to any Geordies out there. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So anyway, that was a funny image. Also, the episode's called The Key. Now,
yes,
put the fingers away, you keyboard warriors, because I know there's a lot of people there typing away. And just let you know, you're not the only one who noticed that Key is an anagram for Ike. Okay, we all noticed it. We got it.
I honestly didn't notice that.
Conrad
to be honest.
didn't notice it, but
that came up in the first recording, and I'm not going to sit here. I can't, in the sight of God, sit here and be like, "Oh, of course, I figured that one out." When I admitted to not noticing that, but I mean, you know, I was deep in the weeds. Is my excuse. I couldn't see the wood for the trees.
Yeah, but that fact though, that Ike is an anagram for is Key. That is like the perfect fodder for someone who loves to put a little comment on YouTube of saying, "Did you notice this?" And you know what? Most of the time I love those comments, but this one I think is so obvious that you know, don't bother. Although if you want to make the comment, make it and then ridicule Konrad for not realizing. That'd be great.
Yeah, exactly. I'm here to be ridiculed.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so anyway, so Ike climbs aboard the Kerberos. Now, listen, I want to talk about this because I can't remember exactly. Well, no, listen, there's going to be a lot of allusions to this old podcast, right? Now, we'll try not to do it too much because we can't. The thing is, like season 2 of 1899, we cannot fulfill the people's want to have that first podcast, so we need to stop annoying them with it, right? But anyway, whenever I need to reference this first. There's a big theory out there. Anyway, I don't know who made the theory. I don't even know if it's actually a theory that's well held, but I heard it. And I actually kind of like it. And that's the idea that Ike and Mora are actually true partners in the real world, okay? So Daniel, whatever, I don't know, maybe he's an ex-partner, maybe whatever, we can talk about that. But there's a lot of chemistry between the two. And also between like Jerome and Clemence. There's moments between them which makes you think there's something in the real world about them as well. So I was thinking about this moment where Ike climbs on board the Kerberos, because there's a big thump when he comes on board. And the way like the Foley art is done and the way that he climbs on board, it really was reminiscent to me of Daniel climbing on board in the first episode, and that to me put a link between the two characters. And I thought, oh, maybe Daniel is just in place of Ike in this or something. Anyway, but what do you think about that idea?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that's true. I think that the setup at the end, I don't want to jump ahead, but the setup at the end of this episode for who the antagonist was going to be in the second season is very, very clear. But knowing the way that these two make their TV shows, to me it seems that in the third season the antagonist was going to be someone that we've already met, whose character would be reframed to be operating selfishly or for ends that were at least in opposition to the rest of the characters. And I genuinely do think that at some point Daniel would have been that character. I think Daniel's desperation to get Mora back, as we'll see throughout this episode, particularly towards the end of this episode, where he kind of dismisses questions she has about the quote-unquote real world, in pursuit of just getting her to get out of the simulation, to me speaks of someone who has ulterior motives that he's not being honest about. So yeah, I think Daniel and Mora were together at some point. I think they're not together anymore, possibly because of the loss of Elliot and the trauma that caused to their relationship. And I think that Mora and Ike are together at the moment, but Daniel basically is trying to roll back time effectively by getting her out of the simulation and but hopefully getting her to not remember everything about it.
Which we joked about.
It's a pretty fine operation that he's running here, to be honest.
We did joke we did joke about that at some point, I think in episode 6 or something, where we were saying, she remembered, you cheated on me. Oh no, I didn't remember that much, but so it's sort of
shush, back to sleep now, as he injects her in the neck.
Yeah, which one's the black or the white? I can't remember. Anyway, so a couple things more to mention here before I turn the literal page of notes, and that is that first of all, they bring up the idea of not remembering how they boarded the ship. So that was how she was trying to convince the rest of the passengers there that you're in a simulation. I think that's really cool, because whenever I mean, I've never been in a simulation, at least I don't think so. But whenever I think about dreaming, like a lot of the time in dreams, you can't, if you actually thought to yourself when you're asleep, how did I get here? You wouldn't know the answer. You know what I mean? So I think makes sense. It's sort of a way to put you in a dreamlike state. Then there's also the fact that they all have letters. That's another cool idea from this.
Yeah, the letters are an interesting kind of plot device because the significance of them seems to just be if you're on the ship, you have a letter, or that seems to be the implication here. But I don't actually know if the likes of if like the crew have letters. I guess Ike does.
Yeah, Ike
does. But Sebastian and
Sebastian definitely
and Franz and those guys, whether they would have had one or not.
Yeah, I will say this about the letters though. I think that they're all. I would imagine most of them are from Kieran, right? So I think about the letters. I think that might be like just a physical manifestation of what he's done to rewrite the code. So instead of changing everything fundamentally, he's like put like a new command into the pre-existing character within the code or something, you know what I mean? So the letter they carry is the new order that they have from his meddling, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, it could also be, that he's figured out a way to make all of their actions create this like recursive environment, and that's like literally a command, like a command might be put into a program to say, this is your role, do this, because I figured out that this entire thing's going to loop if you do.
Yep. Okay, cool. And then there's a really funny moment here where like lots of little bits of comedy in the show in terms of the not lots, just a few bits of comedy in terms of that those two fellas down in the coal room. But this part I think is genuinely funny. Whatever she says, what are we going to do? Whatever, what's your husband doing? Whatever she says, I think my husband's trying to help, and it immediately cuts to Daniel working away like frantically on this machine.
Yeah, just eventually wailing on it with a shovel, which is whatever tools you've got in your toolbox to get it working. That's my stance as well, and it seems to work, but. He doesn't strike me, while he certainly knows more than anyone else on this ship as to how, in terms of what he's doing, he doesn't strike me as someone who's like confident or calm and collected in what he's doing.
No, he's very frantic here, and I think maybe it's because he knows what's coming in terms of the whole thing drifting into redness or whatever it is. But like there's a lot of little cutaways to Daniel here. Maybe I just want to talk about them all, I suppose. So he cuts away to him a number of times, and there's a lot of different things he's doing which we've never seen before. So for example, he's like turning he's like opening up his little Nokia N-Gage, well that's what you call it, and like having little bits he has to plug in the side. There's a whole lot more to it here. And then he also has this moment where he actually unlocks another level of this machine, and something drops from the roof. Now, what do you think about all that design, first of all?
Yeah, so it looks amazing. I'm always a big fan of like the production design in any of the kind of technology in these shows. I love like the kind of, it's like modern technology mixed with like kind of Baroque brass elements that look great.
Yeah, it's great.
And then, and I know that we said we're not going to do this, but I remember this coming up in the last episode, or the last time we recorded this.
We've done it 8 times
already. The quantum computer thing that could get like
good on the
that
guy.
Lowers from the scene. Good on him. Yep, someone told us.
Right. Yeah. Okay. No. So I.
Well, yeah.
Let me actually explain, because they're not.
I was going to give him carte blanche here. Yeah. I wasn't going to call him out again, but fair enough.
No. We'll call him out again. So basically, it's funny, like, a lot of people who like comment stuff on the channel, 99% are really supportive, and we have a great little community here, and I'm always like jumping in the comments and chatting people and stuff. Every now and then there's obviously a comment which I'm just like, what are you talking about, but they're the ones I like to talk about, so therefore it always comes across like I'm just slagging off the comment section, even though 99% are great and everything. So in our first episode, I'm pretty sure it was the first episode, maybe second, but I think it was the first episode breakdown, someone commented saying, calling Konrad a fool, basically calling him an idiot because he didn't know what the design of the machine was on the wall in the engine room, and then they said it was a quantum computer. Even a simple Google would tell you that. The thing was, I obviously couldn't tell Konrad this, and I didn't want to reply just in case Konrad saw. That guy didn't know what was going on he didn't know that Konrad hasn't seen the show. The quantum computer is the thing that he drops from the ceiling in this episode. So the original like sort of steampunky steam whatever. And also, Konrad, listen, that's not even to mention the fact that the thing he was slagging you off for was saying that it was for reading steam measurements, which we were saying Ironically, because that's what they told Ike it was for. So like the layers of this comment missing the point. That's a little side quest for you guys. Go back and look at that comment.
Yeah. Just wildly flying past the point several times is what that.
But anyway, so we touched.
I mean, also, what would I Google? What am I supposed to Google?
Yeah.
Like, what is
circular green, circular gold?
Called? Yeah.
Why would you even know it's a computer? Like at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, good on you, mate.
I am a fool. I'll admit it. I'll hold my hands up for it, but not for that one.
Not for that one. No, not for that one. Anyway, so Henry and Elliot, they're sort of saying about having a wee chat. Talking about our brain is a complicated construct. We can't forget anything. And then so the idea is like, you can sort of lock away or like close your mind off to things, but you can't forget it forever. Also, they talk about the idea of your body remembering even if your mind does not. And then he says, time for you to remember, no need to be afraid. This isn't real. Lots of reasons to be afraid, I think.
Yeah, and I think this is really important. This is like pretty... like Henry says that memories are central to who we are, and that we can lock them away, but we can't hide from them. They still are like composite parts of our being, and I think that's really important for the show, particularly given what we're finding out about Maura and her being like the creator of this simulation. That there's traumas and there's pain that she has like locked away in her life that she hasn't dealt with, and the end result of that is what we're seeing unfold in front of us here.
Yeah, definitely. All good stuff. Virginia. So we've got this moment now where all the different people like Virginia, Ling Yi, Clemence, Jerome, Tova, Ramiro, they all sort of decide, you know what? I'm not really buying this whole simulation malarkey. I'm not really buying this malarkey, Jack. And then they just like mosey on down the boat. They think we're gonna leave.
It does sound insane, but also like the things that they've experienced up until this point should have they need to open their minds a little bit. Like there's literal black rocks growing on the ship. Like it's not just
there's not normal stuff going on here.
It's not just a bad vibe on the ship. Like it's very obvious some reality altering stuff is happening.
Well, the thing is, very quickly they all leave and sort of decide to go, but then very quickly I'm skipping over a little bit here, but very quickly they regret it because they're all of a sudden like, "Where's the doctor? We got to find the doctor." Like,
they
within 4 minutes.
Regret it.
I think it's within 4 minutes of like real time of us watching the show. They're regretting.
Yeah, we shouldn't have split up. We should not have split up. I regret that immediately.
No. Also, Maura has like the key, right? So the little key around her neck. Did that was episode 7, wasn't it? When she was like, "Hey, here it is."
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So she's got it
so
here.
she figures out like that it's in a necklace and is just carrying it around, waiting for an opportune moment to use it.
Yeah. She also shows them the key. I love how that she thinks that's proof. Like, look, we're in a simulation. Look, this is the.
Why else would I have this key?
Yeah. Why else would I have this key here? So the shafts are all gone except for Daniel's. So. Which is interesting as well, the idea that, I don't know, maybe it does set Daniel apart in a way for me. The idea that his shaft, not like they went around and checked everyone's, let's be honest, but
yeah, I mean, the simulation. I mean, I guess the simulation is kind of being like archived here. So in theory, on like a very kind of fundamental computing level, the amount of memory allocated to the simulation is being reduced. In reality, it's not like you don't reduce it. It's just like I'll dump everything out of memory. Like it all goes at once. Like physically, I guess there's nanoseconds of time between it starting dumping it and it finishing dumping it, where like some blocks of memory could potentially still have stuff in it. But I think that's what they're trying to represent here, is that like the simulation is being archived, everything's being flushed out of memory or whatever, and so only the very, very core functionality to what Daniel is trying to do is remaining, because he's like fighting to keep that there. And that's my interpretation of what he's doing here, even though it's not quite how this would work in an actual physical computer.
Yeah, no, great point. I just had a really little brainwave there while you were speaking. You know, the idea of like nothing can be deleted, like you can't forget anything. You know how I've talked before about potentially this whole thing is like a really big like metaphor for like, people's online selves these days, and like the idea of being plugged in and unplugged and in echo chambers and all this sort of thing. Well, isn't that also what you're told like about the internet is like, nothing's ever truly deleted. Like you can't delete something from the internet. So the idea like that you can't, that you can't actually forget, your brain can't forget it. It adds to that sort of thematic.
I think there's definitely something there. I think this idea of like us constructing like an online version of ourselves is like, first and foremost, I think that's really that's pretty central to this idea of identity and what constitutes a real identity that they're going for in the show. But then also like, well, if that is tantamount to a real identity because we're sort of redefining what we consider to be real, then you can't delete those aspects of it, or this like massive sprawl of who you are that you've stuck out onto the internet is there forever now. Like you're never going to get rid of it. I definitely think there's something to that.
Yeah, do you hear that, Beyonce? You cannot delete things from the internet.
Yeah. That's a nice topical reference there. Although it is the Super Bowl today, actually, as we record.
Although it's Rihanna at the Super Bowl this year, though.
Yeah, I think that
picture
Beyonce
came from there,
the Super Bowl, right?
The picture of Beyonce was
so.
Super Bowl, yeah. She looks like the Hulk, and she was like, "Get that off the internet." Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so Maura doesn't remember the family photos. She says maybe they're an illusion. And then
they're
also
all wearing the same bloody clothes. We've already talked about that. And we did joke about this before that like the reality is that it's probably like, we've only got these actors in these costumes. Let's just take all these family photos now and just like spread them around and hopefully no one will notice. But the theory folks among you will be like, why are they wearing the same outfits in every single family photo and why are they all the same age?
Yeah, there must be a reason. But so they find a tunnel in the wall. They've got some and then they've got like this really weird like sort of flashlight from like the 60s or 70s or something.
Yes.
No question about that, though. And off they go. No. Off they go through the walls. And I think I mentioned this before. Maybe I can't. This is the problem. I can't remember if I mentioned it in episode 7 or if I mentioned it in the forgotten episode. But I wanted to mention here the idea of like using the Prometheus, right? So you're going through. Sorry. Okay, I'm using terminology that I haven't even explained yet. So when Henry says, "Very clever of you to use the Prometheus," now that you know, I suppose I can say it, now that you know that this is on a spaceship, or at least it's implied it is on a spaceship, I viewed that line now a bit differently. Like when you say, "Oh, it's smart of you to use the Prometheus," I viewed it as like using the cables which connect the different parts of the system or the simulation within the Prometheus. So we have like the normal tunnels, which are very much in the simulation, but when you take the layer off the side and actually go into the cabling tunnels, it makes me think that you're like actually using the other, hardware or software or whatever you can tell me what.
Yeah, you're like breaking out of the simulation and traveling through the circuitry of wiring of the Prometheus itself.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, which I think there's definitely some truth to that, and it's interesting that Henry does know about the Prometheus, the spaceship Prometheus, if he's a human. Well, it works either way, because if I'm wrong and Henry is a human who's in the simulation aboard the Prometheus spaceship, then he'd know about the Prometheus and he'd be able to like, he would say stuff like that because his subconscious would be like, well, this makes sense on both levels, both the Prometheus the ship and Prometheus the spaceship, and if I'm right and it's actually Maura, then the same thing applies. Like, she knows about both as well. So it's subtext or I guess double meaning to those statements. That's really cool.
Yeah, could be. Okay, so Henry and Elliot are in room 1011 and they're talking about sensors reacting to the same triggers. Mind might not remember, but your body does. That's what we said. So your body might remember, but your mind might not. He says, "I'll show you the truth. Trust me." Very, very, very normal thing to say to your grandson. And then
he definitely seems like he's desperate for Elliot to trust him. Like,
trust me, promise.
I'm trying to think of anything I've seen where someone says "trust me," and they're not a bastard. Normally, there's probably some.
Aladdin. Although he doesn't say "trust me," he says, "Do you trust me?" Whenever he's going to take Jasmine for.
There you go. Yeah, he asks.
Well, he is a bastard actually, because he is lying about his identity.
He is lying about it. Yeah, so Aladdin goes on the bastard pile. Actually, he's not to be trusted.
Fair enough, actually. Yeah. So I don't know why I brought that
she
up.
was wrong. She was wrong to trust him.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, she should have been with Jafar the whole time.
Yeah, Jafar. He had a steady job. He was a wizard, and he was clearly educated. Whereas Aladdin is just like some street rat. He's not like she made.
I don't buy that. Okay. Oh god, the Culture Cave is not classist. Anyway, moving on. So we got. Yeah, you got to play into the English accent.
Yeah, exactly. I'm English. I need to be a villain on this.
Yeah. The guy's got a monkey with a fez. I mean, come on. Anyway, so here we go. So he tells him to have a seat. He gets the black and white injection things.
Yes.
He injects him with the white one, which is interesting because we've seen the black one being injected before. Now the white one gives him a memory of his mother. And Daniel, who is his father, but my theories of Daniel and that. But so his mother and his father are sort of got him in this little room. They've got suits on, which I personally think are the same suits that are on the spaceship at the end.
Yeah, they don't look medical. They look like kind of crew boiler suits to me.
Yeah,
so,
I think it might be the same suit that Moore is wearing in the final scene on the spaceship, which would imply to me that Daniel was also on the spaceship at some point, which means he maybe is a physical person there, which then would also imply to me that potentially the spaceship is another simulation, but we can get into that as well. Anyway, so he sees the moment like Konrad. So the reveal is that basically Elliot is being kept in this moment or kept in this space or place, and keeps getting injected by his mother, and Daniel doesn't seem to be fully okay with it, but it's still happening. What did you feel about this revelation?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can kind of see this coming, to be honest. Like, there's this boy who doesn't seem to age, doesn't seem to like. It's a really interesting performance from the actor that plays Elliot as well, because he doesn't seem like a fully realized person. Like, and they kind of play that off as like, he doesn't want to talk because the creator might hear him, which is kind of dumb in retrospect. So that's one of the things about the show that I'm like, that's a bit silly they did that, because then he's talking all the bloody time and it doesn't matter. But it's good for his character, because I feel like it's used to disguise the fact that he's only really half a person, and the fact the reason for that is because he's built from these very short memories of the very short time that Maura and Daniel had with him as parents. Because he died when he was 10 or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think you can see it building up to this idea that he is not real, and he, like, Maura's memory of him is trapped in this loop of being, of basically being sustained as this memory within a simulation, because they don't want to let him go. Basically, it leans into all these ideas about that they've talked about previously about our memories are always with us. We can't get rid of them, and here is them literally refusing to do that in the case of Elliot.
Yep. Also, one thing she refused to get rid of as well is her obsession with Plato's cave allegory. So Plato's cave allegory, apparently Henry says that Maura, as like a little girl, like literally 7 or 8, became obsessed with this idea. Obsessed.
We've all had our Plato's cave phase when we're on the verge of puberty. We're growing into adults, and our parents sit us down for the Plato's cave talk, and for the next few years you're mad on Greek philosophers. You can't move. Your Aristotle's and your Socrateses and God knows what else.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. Anyway, we will sort of add to the character anyway. Very interesting there. Also, it's funny that Daniel is the one explaining it to her in the previous episodes, because if she's like an expert on it, it means she doesn't even remember it anymore.
Well, so I've speculated that the reason she can't remember what's going on in this room is because it's another example of trauma. Like, the thing that she has done in this room to her son is so traumatic to her own sense of herself as a good person that her subconscious won't let her remember it. It's like, it's kind of like how bad people will just like go to extreme lengths to justify bad things they do. And that's essentially what Maura's done here, I think.
Yeah, no, I know. I think I fully agree that the idea of things being cut off from her mind. But it's interesting that would also include her childhood obsession with Plato's cave allegory. Obviously, that because it led
Yeah.
to that happening, it makes sense, I suppose. That would also be included in that blackout within her mind. Daniel's changing things. He's making all the doors disappear. The virus is coming alive, and it's actually turned into like a snake sort of thing.
Yeah, it looks so good. Like this is, I feel, I have no evidence for this. Like, this is purely me speculating. But I wonder if a lot of the budget for the show went on this episode because the crazy like glitching walls that turn into this like virus snake that's following the people running through the ship looks so good.
Yeah, and actually, the creators of the show, obviously, they don't think it's a perfect show, but they are fans of Lost. And therefore, this really reminded me of like the smoke monster in Lost. I know you haven't seen all of Lost, but have you ever seen the image of a smoke monster?
I don't think so. I know there's a bear. That's pretty much the only thing I know about Lost. Is it a polar bear?
Yeah, the polar bear. Yeah, that's in the first episode. So you've seen the first few episodes.
Okay,
I've
seen, yeah.
So we're never gonna cover Lost on this channel. I'm gonna cover it. We're never gonna do like a After Dark or like a breakdowns of Lost because it's just too long. It's literally too long. Having said that, it is my dream. If some crazy billionaire came and said, "Listen, we're gonna give you $500,000 to do what you want this year on YouTube."
We'll sell out for that.
I would literally quit my job to talk about Lost with you every day, because it is hilarious. It's fantastic. It's unfulfilling. it's a whole lot of stuff. But
I'd agree to do that for like 4 episodes, and then I'd realise I hate Lost and go back to being like, no, have your money back. I'm going back to working in IT.
Well, but it was made in the time where like you'd have a whole episode about something that didn't matter to the storyline. But anyway, we'll move on. So lots of stuff changing. They start going into memories. So it's almost like they're going into different memories. We do also get the moment where Connor... Now, it's funny, like this. I'm actually setting this joke, but in the Lost podcast, which I don't know if you know, guys, but we've actually recorded this podcast before. And in that Lost podcast.
Oh, I misunderstood where you were going. Then I thought you were saying in the Lost podcast, as in the podcast about the show Lost. Yeah, right, okay. I'm back on board. I'm
not talking about the show Lost again, just so you know. So we use the word Lost. I'm not talking about that. But anyway, in our podcast, which is Lost. Konrad made a fantastic segue and joke into the idea that Conor McGregor said a particular thing that every sci-fi needs to say at some point. I'm going to set him up for it now because I want him to do it again, but it's very unorganic now.
There you go, yeah. So as we all know, whenever computers are mentioned in any kind of movie or TV show, there is a ticking clock until the moment that someone says this line, and this is the moment that we get it in 1899 when Sebastian reveals that Daniel has in fact hacked into the mainframe. Now, I don't know what that means in the context of the show. I don't think the showrunners or the writers know what it means. They're just like, we're making a show about computers. Someone's got to hack into a mainframe at some point, okay? That's just the way this works. It's like, this is the hacking equivalent of people racking a shotgun when there's already a shell in the chamber and sending a perfectly good shell flying because they want to look cool. It's literally the same thing. It's like, what does this mean? Like, what mainframe are they hacking into?
That is brilliant. Yeah, the shotgun is so real.
Yeah. And I don't disagree with it, it looks cool, so whatever, fine, we've lost a shell for some reason, but this is that here. They're just like, and they might as well have brought in like some drum and bass into the soundtrack for this bit, while or turned it into like a brief like Matrix interlude.
I know, that's absolutely brilliant. Alright, so they start going into these memories, and also they start becoming mixed in a way. So like, so there's some people going into the May and the Well one. Who was in that one? That was Jerome and Clemence, I believe.
That was... Yes, Jerome. Yeah, Jerome and Clemence. Well, no. So the Well is...
No. Sorry, not Well. In the box on the boat. I think that was...
Yeah, the box is Jerome and Clemence, and then the Well is Ramiro and Ling Yi.
Yeah, I think so. You're right.
Yes, that sounds right. Yeah, I can't remember what... Oh, yeah, and then Mrs. Wilson and...
Tova just go to the desert.
Tova just go to the desert for a bit and just hang
out. They
there.
didn't do anything extra there. They're just like,
this is the really boring.
We just got to use the scene.
Like, let's take them in the trenches.
Yeah, okay. So there's a few things happen. First of all, you get like Oleg in oil. This did make me think that now. Okay, I'll just throw my theory out here. I think that like in the oil, little oil thing, I think it also showed like his little like New York card with blood on it.
Yeah.
So I think to myself, is potentially like he said he's going to New York to meet his brother. Has he just done like what everyone else has done and killed someone and take their place? Like, has Oleg just taken his twin brother's place, and this is actually his twin brother like dead in this oil thing?
I mean, everyone else has killed someone by the sounds of things. So I mean, it stands to reason that Oleg has as well, because why would he be any different? So, yeah, I mean, it does, like, that realization that everyone on this ship, or I guess it's not everyone, because people like Clemence doesn't seem to have killed someone.
Not yet.
And I don't know. But yeah, I mean, that's the question it asks, is that a lot of people who are on this ship, crew and passengers, seem to have been involved in a murder. And that's what they're running away from. So the characters who thus far don't seem to have been involved in one, like Oleg and Clemence and Ike, and like, is there more to their stories that we don't yet know about? And I think that Oleg coming out of like oil here, I don't really understand it as a visual metaphor, but I'm fairly certain it is a visual metaphor. Like, maybe it might be literal as well. Like, maybe there is a body that was dumped in oil, but yeah, there's definitely something going on here that I'm not fully understanding.
Yeah, and it's also not the first time these creators are going to have left an unanswered question of why is someone covered in oil as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good. Listen, they had some oil left over from the dark days, and they were like, "Stick all of it." Like, look, come on, we've got this barrel of oil. Who wants it?
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. Anyway, yeah. So they then Virginia. I suppose the one thing that happens in her little memory thing is that her hand starts to like disappear or like fade, like, I don't know, evaporate, I suppose you would say. Her hand has been virused.
Yeah, it starts getting all Thanos clicked. Turns into
dust,
dirt or whatever, or dust. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so then we get Henry asking, "Do you think your father cares about you? He would choose your mother every time." So talks about he would always choose Mora over him.
Yeah, so I think that's I had a theory on this, which is basically that I think, like, this is manipulative, but I do think this is based on something that Henry has seen. Like, because Henry clearly remembers Daniel's past attempts to break out of the simulation, because he kind of taunts him about it throughout the show, which makes me think that he has seen Daniel make a choice that basically comes down to Elliot or Mora every single time, and he's always chosen Mora. I'm not entirely sure what that choice is, or if it's a choice that we see in this episode that maybe I'm just missing. But it feels like there's something specific he's referring to here. Yeah,
it does. Okay, so Ike and Mora arrive in her memory, and she says, "Father did something to my memory in that building," and then they run off to the building. It's Henry's big sort of mental health asylum.
Yeah.
Then also they're all back on the boat now, and they hear Angel singing.
Yeah, which is never a good sign when you hear like creepy singing.
Yeah, exactly.
From a well.
It's not as nice as the one that Ike heard. Da 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 da. You know that little song.
No, that's true.
It's not as nice as that. So they all start following that. As they do, Henry watches with tears in the little videos. Mora and Ike are there. Conor McGregor shows up and he says,
"Yeah,
crazy, you haven't figured it out yet." And then he asks for the key. What do you think that he means when he says that? You haven't figured it out yet? Because at this point she knows it's a simulation.
Yeah, I mean, I guess she doesn't know that she's the one who's running.
That's maybe what he means. Yeah.
So I mean, that's the obvious solution, the obvious answer to that. But I mean, as we know with these writers, they often don't. They often zig when you expect them to zag. Yeah. They don't go for the obvious options. So I would be surprised if that's all he meant, or at the very least, I'd be surprised if there wasn't a double meaning there.
Yeah.
I know that it's been like speculated that Sebastian might be Kieran, which I don't know if I
Ginger.
It's true. Maybe Irish. I'd love to see him try an Irish accent.
Conor McGregor is Irish, unfortunately.
Yeah, they should. In the second season, when they get a bit more budget, they just recast this guy as Conor McGregor.
Yeah, in real life,
really,
this is a simulation version.
Yeah, just to really hammer home that this is in fact Kieran. I don't know if I believe that theory, to be honest, because it doesn't seem like it's based on that much, but it's certainly possible. We don't really know anything about Sebastian, so who is he? Where's he from? These are completely unanswered questions. One thing that's not unanswered though is Ike's fate, because he just fucking kills him.
And he does apologize for it though. He does apologize for it. So he turns him off. Him off like a light switch. Anyway, he's gone, and then Moore says, "Bring him back," and then he says, "That's not possible, ma'am."
Yeah, he's gone.
Which I think is
gone from this.
I think that's really interesting. The idea that it's not possible to bring him back, because does that mean he's really dead, or does that mean like his like consciousness or whatever has been moved forward into the new? I don't know what the terminology would be. Hard drive.
There's no way he's dead. Yeah,
it's like you can't maybe upload anything new. I can't upload him back into this dying simulation. I don't know how that would work in terms of the actual physicality of the machine, though.
I mean, I think the reality of it is that he is dead. Like, this version of Ike is dead, and they need to spin up a new version of Ike. So it is, there is a sort of sense of mortality here, and the reason that he can't bring him back is because the only way to bring Ike back would be to spin up a new version of the simulation with all these characters in it. I think that's going to be the case, sense. But I think the Ike who is in the higher level of the simulation or real life, depending on how we view that, will remember everything that all of the runs of Ike have experienced. That's my expectation.
This is actually, what's really interesting about this? This is actually a question which you could talk. Have you seen Avatar 2 yet?
No, not yet.
Okay, I've got to take you to see that.
I don't mind if you spoil it though. To be honest, I've got a general sense of what happens.
Spoiler alert. There is a character who comes back, basically.
I know the one you mean.
Yeah. So the main sort of baddie guy is a character that comes back, and it's rebooted from a save point of his life, from like 4 years before the first film or whatever. Yeah. So like that idea is actually really like it's actually coming into this here. So the idea is like that Ike's real person on the spaceship or whatever, wherever he is like when you create a new version of him or an instance of him for the simulation, then that one goes through all the experiences. But if that one isn't the one to leave the simulation, then all of those experiences are gone and you reset it again.
Yeah, I think there's probably some truth to that. Honestly, these guys, they rip off a Brazilian comic and then they rip off Avatar 2
before it even comes out.
I think came out. But they got their grubby little paws on one of the copies of the script for Amazon for Avatar 2, and they were like, "We'll steal it. No one will notice."
That's the truth that no one wants to admit is that whenever this Brazilian woman who's now fallen off the face of the earth accused them of plagiarism. They went to Netflix. Netflix says, "What is this?" They went, "We did it. We stole their stuff." And they were like, "Cancelled!" Like, let's be honest, that's what happened.
How dare you? Like, Netflix, famous bastion of morality, were like, "That's
so." That already stepped.
We'll stand for some things, but we'll be pushed so far, but no further. And you have overstepped.
Oh, fantastic.
They had a phone call from James Cameron who was like, "This is out of order. You can't let them get away with this."
And then James Cameron got a phone call from the director of Pocahontas, as well as from the director of Fern Gully.
Yeah, Fern Gully. That's the thing that no one mentions with fucking Avatar. I actually quite like Avatar. It's not that bad, but like, everyone talks about it being like Pocahontas in space. I'm like, have you not seen Fern Gully? That's the real story.
It's Fern Gully, but also like there's also, just to stick on the Avatar for a minute here, the Avatar 2 is actually basically like they're just doing Macbeth again. So that they've literally, we've got Macbeth, we've got then the Michael Fassbender Macbeth. We've got The Lion King. We've got The Northman, which is like literally like the.
Oh, that's Hamlet.
Oh, sorry. Why am I saying Macbeth? It is Hamlet. Sorry, why am I saying Macbeth? Yeah. I don't know why. I just got to mix up my head. They're all those. They're
not all the same. Please don't.
So all those things. Yeah, all those things I just mentioned are Hamlet, and then all of a sudden James Cameron's like, you know what we need? We need another analogy. Or we need another allegory, or metaphor where we just do Hamlet again. So you've got like.
Yeah,
it's so weird. Like, and the thing about it as well. Again, spoiler alert for Avatar 2. But I'm trying to make Konrad want to watch it because it is funny to watch. I actually generally enjoyed it, but let's be honest, it wasn't the greatest. He wasn't even ballsy enough to kill to kill off the father, right? So he's trying to do Hamlet, but instead of doing Hamlet, he's got Jake Sully, who's prime, Mufasa, kill him, right? He should be the one.
Yeah, get rid of him.
But no. He is that character, the father, and then he just becomes Hamlet as well.
Oh, perfect. And that's really upsetting to hear as well, because I think Sam Worthington has I don't like speaking ill of people, generally speaking, but I think Sam Worthington has absolutely stolen a living as an actor.
Yeah.
I've got no idea how he has made as much money as a leading man in Hollywood, because he's such a bad
James
actor.
Cameron put him in a couple of things within a couple of years, and then everyone was convinced that he was good. But yeah, he's not. His little accent, he can't do accents. He's got a little Australian coming through as American. It kind of works in Avatar because it's so far in the future, but still, come on, you're not good. All right, you don't have to see his face though, Konrad. That's good.
That is good, actually. Yeah, that's good to know, because his face does annoy me.
Should have replaced him with Chris Pratt, man. Okay, so Henry's office, still not asking the right questions, he says. Kieran is the last person you should be worrying about. Interesting. Then they have the whole idea of people are either born a seeker or born an avoider. And so the seeker and the avoider stuff is really interesting to me, because the idea of... They also mention, I think, that contrary to your brother, you were born a seeker to Mora. So Mora's a seeker, Kieran's the avoider. Although that is just Henry's opinion of that. So what do you think about this whole seeker-avoider stuff?
I mean, I'm going to say this as well. There was a great Quidditch gag in this bit here, which I'm not going to try and recreate, but just, insert... Quidditch.
Oh yeah. We were going to town on the Quidditch seeker stuff.
Yeah, but also J.K. Rowling's a turf, so I don't want to talk about her. I think there's probably, as with most of the things that Henry says, there's probably some truth to this, but this kind of convenient binary that he sets up again just feels very simplistic. It feels like the speech of someone who is kind of operating on a very fundamental level.
Yeah.
You've got the good guys and the bad guys. You've got the people who are pursuing science and the people who don't, or who avoid science. And this is true of a lot of things that he says and a lot of the ways that he acts. So I think there probably is some truth to this. I think there's definitely characters in this show who, from what we've seen of them, could quite neatly fit into one of these categories or the other. But I also think that the show is deliberately going to undermine this binary at some point, because it just feels a bit too convenient for it to be everyone's going to fit into one of these.
Yeah, definitely as well. And also the whole perception of it as well is the idea of seeker and avoider. I genuinely believe if you gave everyone the seeker and the avoider options, everyone believes that they are a seeker. Even the people...
Yeah, no one's going to be I'm just an avoider.
Yeah, exactly. Even the crazies who don't actually believe in any science, they're still I'm telling you, the Earth's flat. You need to do your own research. Yeah. I'm a seeker in this regard.
You've got to look it up.
Yeah, you're an
yeah, exactly.
Everyone is a seeker and an avoider at the same time, maybe depending on different things. But anyway, it is what it is. Metaphor. So the injection. It doesn't lead to where they think it will lead. The injection actually leads to her back into... Gets injected with the big black stuff. Oh, yeah, sorry. We skipped... In big capital letters here in my notes, I've skipped one line. She is the creator. She is the creator.
Yeah, this is not my sick mind game. It's yours. You are the creator. Yeah. And then I've written after that in my notes, because that, which is signifies the moment where I should celebrate for having called that. You can kind of see it coming, I think, at this point, and we've talked a lot about Baron Bodo and Jan Fries's great ability to put little breadcrumbs leading you to theories that get bigger and bigger and bigger until the episode where it's going to be revealed, where they really give you opportunities to get it before the reveal, so you can feel smart. And I think this is a great example of that. I feel like you kind of knew this was coming by this point, unless you really weren't paying attention.
Love it.
We're gonna keep it in.
Love it.
We're keeping that in. We're keeping that in.
Oh my god.
That's great. Keep that.
What I love about that is, for audio listeners, my camera just fell.
Yes, sorry.
Let me just put the little packet of sweets back under, which was holding it up. Like I have no...
Yeah, that's
Since
great.
I moved house, I've literally got like a pile of stuff, which is holding my camera up. Back to like, I don't put a tripod behind the desk anymore, so I need to get like a wall mounted thing. I'm literally on a pile of DVDs. Pokemon Season 1's here. I got my chromatic tuner from my guitar, and then I've got a little box of sweets pointing it up at myself. That's how it felt.
Amazing. I mean, listen, jury rigging stuff is the way to do it. Whatever gets the product to where you need it to be. That's the approach to take. But yes, so I'm very happy with this. It's a massive reveal for the show, and I think they've done a really good job of like guiding you by the hand to this reveal as well. Like it doesn't come out of nowhere. I don't.
Oh yeah, no, it's brilliant. I really like it as well. And I will say this. I'm not really a meme creator, more of a meme enjoyer over here. But if there's any meme creators out there who want to pop a meme out onto the Reddit or into the world, I'll give you this one for free. Egon holding the Creator album with Mora's face somewhere on it. There you go.
Perfect.
Take it. It's yours. Okay, so... Jeez, my camera's going again here. I've figured out the problem. My leg keeps hitting the wire.
It's like you've got a GoPro strapped to your thigh or something.
I got to do GoPro from now on. Yeah. Like this perspective, like, it'll go with me.
Watching John Bonham play the drums from the perspective of a camera strapped to his leg.
Yeah. Okay. I'm loving it. Okay. Anyway, so Mora goes off, but then Henry opens up the pyramid, which is a little corner which he turns and opens it, and then he puts the key in. Nothing happens. He's dumbfounded, and he says he changed the code.
Time to wake up, and then then he changed the code, and everyone's very like, it's quite funny. I don't know if this is supposed to be as funny as I found it, but I found it very funny with the whole like the very solemn gravitas of the moment with like Sebastian closing his eyes as he turns the key, and then just nothing happens. And you can kind of imagine it being a very awkward conversation.
Closing his eyes was great, actually.
Yeah. Nice one, Sebastian.
I'm ready, Father. Yeah. Oh, it was great.
But so he's changed the code, which is cool because that's something I didn't actually necessarily see as being what Daniel was doing. So that's a nice little twist. Yeah,
so he changed the code. Deletion of the simulation in 10, 9, 8, 7, whatever. Kerberos disappears, turns back into code, I suppose, just completely disappears.
Yeah.
And then, which was really cool, I like the effects of that, but then Mora wakes up in a hospital gown. Now, this is the part which I thought looked like a video game. Like, she wakes up and there's like a little beam of light on the cross at the grave, like where she's supposed to go. I thought it was pretty cool. And then she goes down into the sort of little grave room and just looks around for a while. Daniel comes in. He's like, it worked. It didn't start all over again. And then we go into a lot of mumbo jumbo, or like a really emotional scene, basically. A little bit of technical mumbo jumbo, but a really emotional scene. And I just want to say, this is the scene where I was properly like, I love this actor who plays Daniel. I think he does such a good job, and I love how the emotion he brings into it. Like, what did you think about this final scene before she wakes up?
Yeah, I mean, I think Daniel is phenomenal. I think he's definitely one of the MVPs of this show thus far, this season of this show. Like, he really carries a lot of the episodes, and I think he's asked to do a lot of character work without necessarily the script to support that character work. Like, he has these like big emotional moments, and although some of them are in the screenplay, like the moment where the moment a few episodes ago where he reveals that they're married and that she's forgotten about him before she like locks him away, that is in the screenplay. So I don't want to sound like I'm downplaying the screenplay, but there's also a lot of pain and pathos with this character that isn't written down, and it's purely in the performance of this actor. So I think this is quite a good example of that. So he turns up, and he's like, just like the relief and the kind of the release of anxiety and desperation that we see in him here. Like, he's almost shaking as he's like finally achieved what he thinks he wanted to achieve is phenomenal. And I love that even in this moment of like triumph for this character, these writers are already sowing seeds of potentially darker elements to this character. So when Mora Daniel says this is the first simulation we ever created, so there's like playroom for Elliot, and Mora says, why don't I remember? And his response, which I think is it's really telling, and it's just hidden in the rest of the dialogue, is that doesn't matter now. And it's so important for where this character would have gone, because nothing could be more important at this point. Like, Mora doesn't remember anything about the creation of this first simulation, and Daniel, at the moment where he could tell her something about it, deliberately chooses to conceal that information from her. And I think this is the moment. This is like not necessarily the start, because I think there's been other little hints before this, but I think this is really the moment where the idea of him having potentially selfish motives, maybe they're not together, maybe he's trying to restore their relationship and kick Ike to the curb by only having her remember selective things, is really starting to gain speed. And I'm convinced that Daniel, based on this and some other things in this season, I'm convinced that Daniel would have been the villain of season 3 of this show. I think we end up with Kieran positioned to be the villain of season 2, and I think Daniel would have been the villain of season 3.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. Like what in the Lost podcast, whenever you mentioned that line that he said there about it not mattering anymore, that really took me off guard. I didn't actually pick that up, and I've watched this scene so many times. Like, I actually go watch the last 2 scenes of this show regularly, just because I love the way it ended so much. But really, really cool, Konrad. I love that, and I would have loved to see where that goes. I mean, the creators did say in an interview, apparently before the show came out, they were asked, like, what do you do if Netflix cancels you? Because they did say in the interview, like, we've told Netflix we're not making it to be a 1-season thing. We're making it to be 3 seasons. You know, it will not be so like tied up nicely if they cancel it after 1 season. And then they said, well, what would you do if they did cancel it? And they said, would you write a novel? And then Yoncha Friesa actually responded, more like a graphic novel, you know. So they were already thinking that it's a possibility. So I think we might get the story.
I mean, I guess you have to with Netflix. I would be on the one hand, it's like, I don't know how they do that, because Netflix owns the rights to it, I guess.
Yeah.
But I'd love them to just, you know, I mean, I don't want them to write the screenplay for no profit, no payment, but it would kind of be cool for them to do it and then just be like, oops, I dropped it on the street, and it just like, it makes its way.
But listen to this timeline. Like, they convinced Netflix to just give them, like, just give us like $500,000 and we'll write 2 graphic novels for you, right? And then like, imagine the graphic novels go really hugely popular, and then Netflix commissions them to make like TV series versions of the graphic novels. That'd
be great. Yeah. They just, like, the most roundabout route to a season 2 and 3 of 1899 we could have possibly taken. We'll all be on our 60s by the time that happens.
I mean, yeah, here's hoping. Like, but if it happens when I'm 90, I'll be happy. Okay, so all right, so there's a few things before this she wakes up here, right? Okay, so first of all, the idea of the toy and the wedding ring becoming now the key and the pyramid. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think it's really cool, and again, like, the production design is really fun, because it's you know, it bears some similarities to the, you know, the very kind of ominous looking black pyramid, but it's a kid's toy, so it kind of undercuts the whole seriousness of the process in a really fun way. Yes, I thought that was really cool, and it ties back into this idea of like Elliot and the kind of perpetuation of Elliot as a living memory for both of them, being like central to their storyline. Yeah,
like maybe there's some metaphor that would have been teased out, like the idea of you escape this by putting your wedding ring into one of your children's toys. Like, is she giving away her marriage? You know, there's a whole lot of stuff you could do.
I mean, I hadn't really sort of properly formalized that, thought about that, but that makes a lot of sense based on what I think about what happened to their relationship. You know, that it's very, very common for, you know, people who lose a child, their relationship to really struggle, often fall apart, because, you know, how do you come back from that trauma? So it would not surprise me at all if Elliot's death was the thing that cost them their marriage, and this is a visual metaphor of that.
Yeah, could be. Also, he says you have to wake up. Everything will be lost. he also says it's much bigger than you think. So that sort of implies. I mean, we've speculated before, like maybe it's like the idea of like they're creating AIs or they're uploading people's consciousness onto AIs. Like that would definitely be really, really big. If we take the Prometheus spaceship as the real life world and not a simulation, then that would also imply that, like, you know, it's important because they're going to the new world or whatever. So there's a lot of things. I think this show probably was going down the route that whatever's happening does like matter to all of humanity. I don't know. I get that impression, you know.
And they definitely, like, this is them raising the stakes in, like, really traditional kind of second season of a TV show thing, you know. This show is about the fates of the people on the ship. The next season is about the fate of the world. You know, like, it's like you've got to up the stakes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So then, also the last thing maybe Daniel says before she goes, he's crying and everything, and she says, "Will you be there when I wake up?" Liar. Because he wasn't. But then he says, crying, "I'll always be there." And that, like, she gave away a wedding ring to escape this. Her husband there is saying, "I'll always be there." This might literally be the last we see of him, although I don't necessarily think that. But, you know, I can't really imagine where it was going to go because he wasn't there when she woke up. Well, I don't know. What do you think about that line?
I mean, it definitely paints a picture of... I mean, we know... coming into the reveal at the end of this season that Elliot was a memory constructed by the pair of them that isn't real in the sort of traditional sense. So I think what they're trying to do here with both those things you've mentioned is sow the seed that the same is true of Daniel, that he is a memory, that he's not actually there, that he gave up, you know, he very selflessly gave up his own existence to get her out because of the fate of humanity or whatever the fate is. But I think that there's a meta reason why I don't think that that's the case, and a narrative reason. So the meta reason is the performance is too good for him to just never come back. You know, it's kind of like Noah in Dark. Like, they had to get Noah back in some way. I know he's not like a main character in any of the second or third season of Dark, but he does appear again. Not to spoil it, I guess, but, you know, he'll appear. Don't worry. Because that performance is so good. So maybe Daniel will come back in like a supporting role just to give the actor some more screen time because he's so good. And the narrative reason is that I think he's perfectly set up to become a villain because his motives are so unclear, or not necessarily unclear, but so anytime any character is like hyper focused on something that's very personal to them, that Jon Fries and Bambo are really good at turning that obsession from something that's a positive, something to be seen as a good act, into something that like boils over into a negative or even an outright evil one, as we saw in Dark. So I think that's the direction Daniel's headed in.
No, I think you've convinced me on that, to be honest with you. So last scene. You're right. They're in space.
This was a cold shot. This was a cold shot. I guessed on this, and I can't believe that I was correct, to be honest.
So she's in space. She wakes up from a simulation in the spaceship. Black and white tubes going into her head, which I thought was really interesting. So obviously they are doing something with their brains with this liquid still, even in this... Some
kind of memory experiment or something.
Something's going on. There's a few things I noticed about it, so which I'll just rattle through. So obviously they have the little ding, 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 the little screen. It says, "May your coffee kick in before reality does," on a little bit of card.
Yeah, I was furious about
Someone stuck a card.
Like, it's got to be I was convinced that was going to be on someone's coffee cup. But no bueno, no point.
You'll never know now. So it says October 19th, 2099, and Kieran says, "Hello, sister. Welcome to reality." Very much, very much implying that this is reality. The fact that was said though makes me think, oh, this isn't reality.
Yeah, I mean, I've really gone back and forth on this, like, because I mean, not to give anything away, but we've had discussions with other people since we watched this about this very thing, and I can see both sides. I can see the argument that the reveal that this is also a simulation might be a little underwhelming as a reveal for the second season. I also think that it's just like, I can't see how the second season of this show would have just been them running around a spaceship for like with none of the kind of reality altering or questioning elements. So yeah, I'm really not sure on that, but the reveal is fantastic. Production design is amazing. The music choice is amazing with the Bowie,
Starman.
Like obviously a perfect choice. And we get, like, having had Daniel say, "Oh, this is bigger than you can ever imagine," we now get potentially the thing he's talking about here. It seems likely this is the thing he's talking about, where the Prometheus has 1,423 passengers, and I think it says it's a colonization mission or repopulation mission or something. Which
survival mission. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it implies that these people are going to potentially populate a human colony, or maybe an Earth-like to restart the human race, because in 2099 maybe we've fucked up Earth to the point where it's now a dying planet, which is what I think. I do think, like, that all these people apart from the crew must be in hypersleep, awaiting their destination. But it's fantastic, and I love the Kieran reveal of him typing out to her on a console, because it immediately asks the question of, like, oh, is Kieran real, or is Kieran like an AI that her brother built that's running the ship in like a HAL 9000 kind of way? Like, there are ways that they could go that would have made the second season of this really interesting, I think.
Yeah, because apparently as well, like when Daniel mentioned in the last scene about your brother's taking control since, and then he's like changed the simulation and everything. What we were actually seeing was Kieran's version of the simulation, so who knows what it originally looked like. Was there a boat or anything like that? Also, this idea as well, maybe there is an empty pod, so that's one thing that we need to talk about. There's an empty pod, and immediately I thought to myself, well, that must be Kieran's pod, because they talked about he left a long time ago, and then we found out, like, that he took control of the simulation. So maybe he escaped first and then took control of the simulation. That would be really cool if that's the case.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Or he left and took control of the simulation, but is still claiming Kieran is in control of it because he needs Mora to do more outside of the simulation, and to motivate her to do that, she has to be operating against Kieran, but it's actually just Daniel. I mean, as I say, there's a lot that they could have played with. With like the physical sci-fi that they've got set up now. Yeah,
and I think one thing that I wanted to mention, actually, I can't remember how I put it across in the Lost podcast, but basically, I've got a theory which I think actually might hold some water, and I think it would be really cool, but it's not really based on much, right? It's based on a few meta ideas, like the idea that having 1899 just be another simulation is that what everyone expects, so you wouldn't expect Baron Broder and Yontra Friesa to do that.
Yeah.
At the same time, if it is reality, then why it's really unbalanced for me, the idea of doing like 2 seasons in reality and 1 season in the simulation. It doesn't really make sense balance-wise.
Yeah.
So I've had an idea which I think is a really cool idea, and that's the idea that although Daniel was like pleading with her to wake up and convinced that he was getting her to wake up, I think that potentially where they were going with it was by turning the key, or by putting the wedding ring in and into the toy, instead of waking up, Mora's actually unwittingly sent herself further in and went to, instead of a layer towards reality, she's went a layer deeper into the simulation.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely possible as well. Like, it stands to reason, if you can bring yourself, there's so much hopping around simulations, or settings of simulations in this season. Like, why couldn't they go deeper and not realize it?
My idea was maybe Mora is and their attempt to try and make an AI, to try and have an AI actually have consciousness. And so the idea is you need to keep going deeper within the mind of the AI to go to the next level, to learn more, to go to the next level.
Yeah.
So like the idea of Daniel saying you need to wake up, it's like to wake up for this AI, actually it means to go deeper, to become more human. Lots of stuff going on there. And maybe Kieran was like the first attempt at making an AI, and that's why they're brother and sister.
That's possible. That would also make sense as to why Henry and Sebastian et al. Are operating in opposition to Mora and Daniel, because although Daniel's saying we need to get you out, he actually wants to send her further in, whereas Henry and Sebastian do want to get out. So that would tie quite neatly all of that together. Yeah,
exactly. So I kind of like that idea. Any final thoughts here, Konrad, before we move into the roundup? Not the roundup. That was the roundup. We don't really have a roundup.
No, I think
the old way.
We've covered. Yeah, I think we've covered everything that I wanted to cover.
Well, there you go, Konrad. There is 1899. We finally got there.
We did it.
Sorry to.
Looks like we made it.
yeah. So sorry for taking so long for that, guys. We really did. We did it a couple of weeks ago, or a week and a half ago now, and we just couldn't record it immediately again, knowing. Like having the script of our last recording, I think that would have been horrible.
Yeah. I would have felt really, really disingenuous if I'd have been like, I would have constantly been like, what was the joke here? I remember saying this. I need to get it back. Whereas like this time, it's been legit. This is Culture Cave Unplugged.
Yeah, and I think we hit maybe 85% of the energy and hilariousness of the last one. I don't think we got there. But we've given you something to be proud of. That's for sure.
I like this new standard we have of like self-reviewing ourselves after each podcast. Like, I'm gonna give that a 6 out of 10 for us. Just set expectations before anyone else has a chance to criticize.
But that last podcast was the perfect one, though. But anyway, so that's that. We do have lots more stuff coming, guys. We actually do have some more 1899 stuff coming. It was planned. We have done it, so therefore we are going to release it. But once the dust settles on that, we sort of want to have a little bit of time to work on some of the stuff. Maybe we are going to come back for breakdowns. We don't quite know what yet. So if you have any ideas, put in the comments. We're really, really happy to look into your ideas. I actually quite like the idea of Konrad and I both going through a show. I think someone actually said in a comment one time an idea for us to both go through a show at the same time, having both not seen it, and then we could have like competing theory matrices. I think that's a cool idea.
Yeah, we could definitely do that. I think that's a good idea. Yeah, there've been some really good suggestions, so I'm open to any number of them. Yeah, as Anthony says, we'll probably take a month off or something and just do some other videos so we can recharge our breakdown batteries, and then come back with a bang for something that hopefully we'll have more than one season.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, guys, thanks very much for watching. Any questions or comments, put them in the comment section. Subscribe, all that sort of stuff. Thanks for coming on this journey with us. We got there in the end. Unlike the crew of the Kerberos and the passenger of the Kerberos, they never got to New York. We did get to the end of the season. So thanks very much, guys, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.